Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Dr. Mary.
Welcome to Mental Health Morning. We have a couple other people who are going to be coming in, but the ice was a challenge for all of us. So thank you to Doug who helped make it less icy today. So Mental Health Morning is for the purpose of finding tools that you can use right now to help your mental health, to improve your everyday function, and to have a good quality of life. So I'm very pleased to have you here. I want to introduce I have a couple things to say. You probably all know where the bathrooms are. They're in the back. Thank you to Audrey, who's volunteering to help us with registration. There's food and snacks over there. There's coffee and some labeled food items. And if you don't mind digging around in the kitchen, you can get yourself some water if you prefer that as well. So I want to introduce our first speaker. One other thing I need to say is we have a book table, and do you want to come up here and talk about your book table?
Always.
This is Canon Mark Pearson. He's the CEO of New Creation Healing Center.
We have a book table, and a couple of books in particular, Christian Healing. It's in multiple foreign languages, none of which I read, so I hope they did a good job. But we also have an English language edition. It's in its multiple print now. And it is the basics of God's Christian healing ministry. In addition, some of the topics that will be covered today are expanded in the book, and Dr. Mary's written some parts of this as well. That's available for purchase. The book prices are in the inside front cover, and if I'm not over here for breaks, Audrey will help you. There's a cash box where you can make change and checks to Institute for Christian Renewal. The other kind of theme besides physical healing is emotional healing, and there's the book Free to Be Me. And this has also gone through multiple printings and editions and so on, and it looks at personality type. I'll say more about that at my talk at 11. Finally, the educational arm of what we do here for decades has been under the banner of Institute for Christian Renewal. And we publish newsletters with teaching articles on various aspects of the faith. I've got a couple sample copies there. Please feel free to take them, no charge for that. If you would like to start receiving it on a regular basis, it comes out 5 times a year, and you can sign up. If God has given you the gift of speaking in tongues, that's wonderful, but when you sign up, do not write in tongues. Make it legible with your mailing address, and we'll be happy to put you on the mailing list. Thank you. See you soon.
Okay, our first speaker is Judy Howell. She is a licensed mental health counselor. She's a graduate of Cambridge College. She's going to be talking to us today about cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy is such a powerful tool that there was a study that came out in a recent medical journal that said just reading about cognitive behavioral therapy, just reading about the general principles of it, improved mental health. So, Judy, please come up and give us your lecture.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, the microphone. You gotta adjust the mic a little bit.
The mic.
Yeah, the mic is too high.
Thank you. Guys, as Dr. Mary said, cognitive behavioral therapy, it's what I probably use 85% of the time with my clients. I love it because it's more biblically based than most of the therapies. So I'm able to adopt that at the same time, which is good. And the whole, it's based on the principle of our thoughts influence our feelings. And our feelings influence our behavior. And our behavior can influence our life, short term and long term, because of the decisions we make. Because we base reality sometimes on feelings, it's not always reality. So this is the sequence we're going to talk about today. We start off with events, situations that happen on a daily basis, affect how we think sometimes. And depending on how we think about those events, is going to affect how our emotions are. How do we feel about that? And because we're really feeling people most of the time, we're going to begin to behave according to our feelings, make decisions according to our feelings. So it's how we interpret or think about situations. It's not about the situation itself. It's not about what people say. It's about how we interpret that event. And that goes back to what we're thinking. So one of the other things I love about cognitive behavioral therapy is it doesn't deal with the past. We're not going to go talk about, we may touch on it, but it's not about what happened in the past. It's about what's going on now. We're dealing with present situations in our lives now, and how can we change the way we think so that we interpret the situations going on correctly and make good decisions and feel better. That's one of the things about therapy.
Yeah.
You don't come to therapy because you don't like the way you feel. You don't like the way your life's going. So it's a good place to start. I really appreciate it. So let me give you an example of how our thoughts can affect making decisions that get us in trouble. So my boss didn't say hi to me one day. My boss always says hi to me in the morning. My first thought was, I wonder what I did wrong. I wonder if I am going to get reprimanded for something. I'm wondering if I said something that offended him. And all these crazy thoughts going on. So I go home that night, and that's all I can think about. And I'm starting to get really, really anxious. I'm starting to get really, really depressed. I'm having a hard time sleeping, waking up in the middle of the night thinking about it. I wake up the next morning. My first thought was about what happened yesterday. Why didn't my boss say hi to me? I can't even go to work today because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I know he's going to call me in the office. I know he's going to reprimand me. I think we're just going to see him stay in bed. Won't call in sick. So that's what I do. So it just snowballs. Okay. Now I call in sick. Now I'm really going to get fired. But can you see how the negative thinking about one little situation, because someone didn't say hi to me, can just snowball into taking a day off of work that you shouldn't have taken? All that anxiety, all that lack of sleep, because of one person who didn't say hi to me. That's what cognitive behavioral therapy is about. Trying to reinterpret what happened. What am I thinking? Because we can begin to ruminate on the negative. And we do that, we get on some pretty scary places sometimes. So now, what's that doing? You look at it, the thought, the start of the event was my boss didn't say hi. The thought, my boss is mad at me, I did something wrong. And then the behavior, I didn't go to work next day. So we need to go back and stop and think. I kind of have to laugh at it. I need you to think about what you're thinking. And I think you'll always tell me, I'm not thinking anything. We're always thinking. So let's go back to this this here, where in the sequence do we have control? Something about that.
And behavior.
Okay. Can we control or influence events and situations?
Not as much as we would like,
Very true.
sometimes.
Sometimes, that's a good answer, Mary. I mean, many times we can. But we can't choose how our parents were. We couldn't choose how our siblings, we couldn't choose, disasters. We can't choose if we have a disability. There's a lot of things in life, a lot of situations that we don't have any choice, but we still need to deal with. Sometimes we do have a choice. Sometimes where we spend our time. If I'm spending time with the people that influence me in a negative way, I can change that. I can change that situation. I can change situations like risky behavior, driving too fast. So sometimes we do have control, but most of the time we don't. It's just kind of dealt to us. You know, I could go on with a lot of situations that we have no control over. Do we choose our thoughts and feelings? I want you to do a brief exercise. I want you to close your eyes. Don't fall asleep. And I want you to picture a giraffe. Now I want you to picture a snowflake.
That's too easy.
That's so true. Now picture yourself, I would pick the beach. Picture yourself someplace that brings really peace and joy. Whether it's an activity, some place to go, someone you spend time with. Each one of these created a feeling. As we begin to picture certain things, they create a feeling within us. I was thinking about this the other day, and talked about a giraffe and then a snowflake. The giraffe is big, and they're awesome. And then there's a little snowflake that's so beautiful and gentle. And just the contrast between the two, and I get the same feeling with both, because they both make me happy. Always happy at the beach. Unless it rains.
No bad days.
No, I have to agree with you, yeah. But you had to think about each one of these pictures to create a feeling. Didn't you? Yeah. You had to start with a thought. Because you can't get the picture unless you have the thought. See how the thoughts create feelings? Those are positive, that's great. I want you to feel angry. If you have to close your eyes, you can. No judgment here. You have to think about someone who wronged you. Maybe a spouse or a friend betrayed you. Someone stole money from you. Someone cut you off in traffic. Or rage. Regardless of what you thought, the point is, it's almost impossible to command your feelings.
Hmm.
I can't get up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to be happy and joyful today. Well, I'm going to have to think about this before I can get there. I'm going to have some really good positive thoughts. Or I can get up in the morning and say, it stinks. Well, why does it stink? So I have to go through all of that mental work. What's going to be bad in this day? Before I can say, yeah, this is a bad day. Or I can choose, I'm going to have a good day. And this is why. And we'll start thinking about the good things that can happen today. We only have access to our feelings, to our thoughts. We can't command them. To go back to the original question, which almost everybody already answered, which do we have control over in the sequence?
The thought.
Right. And that's something you said, behavior. Which if you go through enough therapy, like behavior therapy, yes. Many times you have to go back to recognizing your thoughts and changing your thoughts before you can actually have the ability to change your behavior. One of the things that I talk a lot in therapy, and it can sometimes be really, really frustrating, because I'll ask someone, you know, they'll come up with a story and you're really, really depressed. And, I said, so let's go back and talk about the situation. You know, what are your thoughts over the situation? I don't have any. And they go directly to feelings. Because they're not able to recognize the difference between the two. You know, so sometimes you have to go back and really work on what's the difference before you can go any further. So, you know, we see the world. I'll get the hang of this one day. St. Paul talks about, I believe, cognitive behavior therapy. You know, he talks about, do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and prove God's will. His good, pleasing, perfect will. And that's why I like cognitive behavior therapy, because that's what we're doing. We're renewing our minds. You know, I was thinking about scripture in Psalms. In Psalms 139:14, it says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. God created us wonderfully, fearfully made. And that includes our brains, includes our minds, our emotions, every part of us. So if God created us, can He help us change? And I believe that comes through reading scripture and seeing what God really says to us. It comes through affirmations of people that love us around us. But it's possible. And I think that's a great good news, is we can change our thoughts, which can make a tremendous difference in our life. Sometimes our thoughts come out of the blue. It doesn't take a situation and just all of a sudden it's there. It's called, excuse me. It's called automatic thoughts. A lot of them are developed when we were younger. And we don't recognize them for what they are. But we can still, once that thought comes, because we can't control the thought that comes, because it's automatic thought. But once it comes, then it's our choice what we're going to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can ruminate on it, and feel miserable. And feel depressed and anxious and make bad choices. Or we can decide to, okay, and I'm going to do a little bit more of this later as far as how to do it. We can make a choice of changing the way we think about it. And that's where our choice comes in. Sometimes we can't choose the thoughts. We see the world through what's called a schema. It's like a prism that we look through. And it's developed through beginning in childhood. And I am not into blaming parents at all.
I teach my kindergartners what schema is.
What was that?
I teach my kindergartners what schema is.
Do you? It's a great age to start.
Yeah.
Very, and the brain's still developing. Yeah. So a lot of these begin in childhood and continue to develop over the years, even into adulthood. Many times we begin to develop what they call cognitive distortions. Which I've got a list in your packet of cognitive distortions. Don't think I'm going to kind of go into them, but they're pretty self-explanatory. And I'll give some examples down. If you have any questions, I'll be around after. So, I'd rather focus on how can we change these rather than this is something you can take home with you. But one of the things I would recommend is taking one a day. Taking a look at it and beginning to work upon it with the things that I talked about now. I want to talk about cognitive reframing. First step in cognitive reframing is knowing the difference between thoughts and emotions. And I think I just talked about that a little bit. Thoughts are almost like having a scripted new brain. Your emotions, something you feel within your soul, your body. Love, fear, joy, sadness, those are all feelings. And like I said, a lot of people have a hard time distinguishing between a thought and a feeling. So that's where you have to begin, is to be able to recognize the difference between the two. The second step is identifying distorted thinking, which is the cognitive distortions. And most of the time these are negative, if they're causing negative emotions and behavior. Most likely they're some sort of cognitive distortion. This is not all inclusive. I'm sure there are many out there that I haven't even seen yet. With cognitive reframing, you're going to change the way that you describe something. How you interpret an event. Or how someone else's behavior. When you want to stop a bad habit, what do you have to do? You have to replace it. So if you are living your life going around with all these cognitive distortions and unhealthy thinking, you can't just stop thinking.
Yeah.
You got to replace it. You got to recognize it and then replace it. The second step is the distorted thinking. You need to challenge the thoughts and examine the validity of them. Then the negative thoughts need to be replaced with more balanced, positive interpretation. This is another handout I gave you. It's on coping with cognitive distortions. I don't have it in my PowerPoint, it's kind of the last minute thing I decided to put in. But it does give you some ideas as far as how to do this. It's called the ABCDE model. It's very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy. They just added a little more stuff to it. And it talks about are the thoughts that we have plausible? That's the first thing we gotta do when we're thinking. Is it verifiable? If I have this thought about a situation, can I verify that, yeah, it's true? What are the chances of something like that happening? You ask yourself a lot of questions when the thoughts come. Is it consistent with facts? Is there advantage to believing the statement? I talk a lot to people about that. What are you benefiting from ruminating all these negative things? Nothing. Great. Good answer. So, what do I do about it? So, you have to replace bad thinking and healthy thinking. You can't just stop. Sometimes you can change something that's negative to something that's neutral, not positive. Rethinking assumptions. Sometimes we think something's negative and it's really not. That ever happen to anyone?
Yep.
I love this. A rainy day, and I don't like the rain. It was one of the things that I've really been working on, using strong words when it's really not necessary. Like, I hate the rain. No, I just like the rain. But I'm getting there. It's a step in the right direction. But look at the difference, the example. Not happy at all. But look at the little kid who loves the rain. It can be a positive thing. Maybe not for everyone, but it doesn't mean rain's bad. Right? So try to change, the way you look at what you think is a negative thing. Say, you have plans to go with a friend. I'm really looking forward to it. Haven't seen this friend for a while. It's been horrible out, I'm stuck in the house, snow, and they canceled at the last minute. What's our automatic thought?
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't ruin your night? You can. Right? Doesn't have to. You stop and think, okay, I have this free time. What have I been wanting to do? I've been wanting to sit on the couch and read a book. A novel. What the hell do I think about? Perfect opportunity. What I could have done is gone through this whole, well, they canceled because they don't want to spend time with me. They canceled because they had a better offer. Those are all those thoughts that you got to stop and say, okay, for whatever reason, I'm going to take this time for my benefit. And you can switch your whole mood around and your whole behavior around. So I'm not going to go to bed and pull covers over my head and say, everybody hates me, I'm going to eat some worms. I'm going to do something nice for myself. Because I was given this opportunity to have some time. Well, one of the other things that we really have to be careful with thoughts is statements like, thoughts like, I can't handle this, it's impossible. Where does that take you? Hopeless. But instead ask, okay, how can I handle this? How can what can I do to make it a little bit better? Might not be able to solve it all.
Mhm.
How is it possible? It's not impossible.
Mhm.
You know, you begin to ask those questions rather than, I can't handle this. It opens the door for new possibilities. So to go back to the cognitive distortions, one of the first things you gotta do is come up with some thought-stopping techniques.
Yeah.
After you begin to recognize the distortions, which is hard to do sometimes. It takes hard work, and I tell people right up front, if you're willing to do some hard work, we can do this. Not gonna be easy, because you've been thinking this way for a long while.
Mhm.
So thought-stopping techniques. I had a client that used to, every time she get in fight with her boyfriend, she would go out and get drunk and get herself in trouble, sometimes in jail. So we talked about it, and it's okay, so what can we do so that you don't think about the impulsive behaviors and take off? What will keep you there so you don't go? We went with a stop sign.
Mhm.
And she put a stop sign on the door of the apartment. So whenever she had that fight, and when had that temptation to go out and get drunk, she looked at the thoughts, the stop sign, and it clicked something in her brain. I don't want to do this. I don't want to get myself in trouble anymore. Sometimes just saying something out loud, like stop. I was going through a really difficult time a few years ago in a really dark place, scary place. And I can remember I was taking my dog for a walk, and all these thoughts were coming, and it just was something just, and out loud, people thought it was crazy if they were around. I said, you can't go there. And it's just, I was able to stop that pattern of negative, dangerous thinking, because I don't know where it would have gone. And I still use that a lot. You know, if I find myself thinking a lot of negative thoughts, well, we're gonna have them. Like I said, you can't control what comes into your thoughts. Then you're gonna decide what you're gonna do. Some people use elastic on their wrist. Sometimes that physical sensation of that can help them to rethink, stop. It's just a reminder, no, this is not a good place to go. I think, Mary, one of the other times you brought up scripture. Do you have a favorite scripture? Worship music. Any type of music that's going to calm you down. What's going to work for one person won't work for another. So you got to come up with some creative ideas of how that's going to work. And I'm very, very willing to sit with anyone and do that for you. So a thought-stopping technique. That's the first thing you got to do. You got to stop the thought. And then begin to ask yourself these questions that I just talked about. My friend Hansel, what are the chances she made plans with someone else instead of me? Come on. Why wouldn't she want to spend the time with me? She said she was sick. What's the chances she was sick? Pretty high, right? So you gotta think things through. Not just take those thoughts as truth. With the ABC DE, said, it's very, very, very similar to cognitive therapy, and I really like that too. And it really, what I think would be really helpful is to take one of these cognitive distortions each day and go through what we're talking about. You know, you're not gonna have them all, maybe, but most people don't. But take one that you feel that's really interrupting your life. One that's really causing you to not live the life that you really want to live. And go through the steps. Go through the steps on the index. And I think you begin to see a difference in the way that you begin to think and feel and make decisions. I'm going to leave time for some questions.
You've got some time left, if you want to go through some of the cognitive
Yeah,
distortions.
sure. Well, if you take a look at those, is there any particular one that you would like questions about, that you feel like you want to share?
Judy, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Is there a good method for identifying cognitive distortions in yourself?
Yes, there is. For one thing,
Yeah.
that helps a lot. I've done a lot of work in therapy, and that was one of the things that I worked a lot on, because I know the environment that I grew up in.
Yeah.
It definitely was going to be. What I've learned to do is, if for whatever reason I'm beginning to feel depressed, or I'm beginning to feel anxious, or angry, or any of the negative emotions, through it I have to stop and think. Well, be aware of what I'm thinking. And many, many times I can go back to, oh, I see where that's coming from.
Gotcha.
I can remember a time when I was feeling really, really depressed, and having a really difficult time even keeping up with cleaning my house. To the point where to empty my dishwasher, I would have to do it in sections.
Really?
I'd empty one rack, close it, and go back later on to the other rack.
Yeah.
And the reason I started to do that was, if I thought about cleaning my whole house, and I realized I had that all nothing, nothing thinking. If I can't do the whole thing, I'm not doing nothing.
Yeah.
And things just continue to build up and build up and build up. To the point where you feel hopeless, I can't do this.
Right.
So I really had to work on that. And I'm able to do that now. Just pick, hey, I'm just going to do this. If I feel like doing something after, I will. And it gets done that way.
Yeah. And
I feel better. And I don't go to bed with covers over my head. So pretty much, overgeneralizing. You take it, and I say you're in bed, something that happens, and you assume everybody's that way.
Yeah.
If a cop stops you and he's mean to you, first thought is, all cops are jerks, right? If a sales clerk is mean to me, and they don't come over and wait on me, I think, boy, they're lazy. If I'm going to overgeneralize it, all salespeople are lazy. So there's so many different ones that, if you really take a look at them, be surprised.
Can you speak a little bit about an overly restrictive worldview? I'm trying to remember what the cognitive distortion is, but when people have internal rules that kind of restrict them from responding to their environment in a healthy way. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but I can't recall the name of it.
I can remember reading that though.
Maybe under should statements. Number nine.
Should stay.
Should statements, yeah,
Perhaps.
yeah, thank you. Mhm. Yeah, those can get you in a lot of trouble. Should statements. One of the things we did in Overcome is, and I'm sure they do it in AAO too, is one of the first things we tell them is get rid of the should and the ifs and the whats.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be beneficial to you at all. I should have done that. The world should be this way. People should be treating me a different way.
Somebody once told me they changed their shoulds to coulds.
Shoulds to coulds, that's nice, yeah.
So instead of like, I should exercise it,
Yeah.
I could exercise it.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that kind of worldview where everybody should be treating me this way.
Yeah.
Life should be this way, but life isn't that way.
Right, yeah.
So, how do you deal with it? Right.
I think asking yourself why with the shoulds is dangerous too.
I know one of the other things which goes along with that is sometimes asking why is not a good thing. Sometimes you have to, so you can change something. But many times, you're not going to know. You may not want to know.
That's exactly right.
You know, so rather than asking why, okay, what can I do?
Yep.
What's my part in it? How can I change anything? So I don't have control over everyone else. You know, and then that's one of the things that, like a lot of people, even with cognitive behavioral therapy, is you can't change anyone else.
That's exactly right.
You can only work on yourself.
Yep.
And change yourself.
Yeah, one thing I've found helpful as I've grown older, I get involved less in things. Because I used to, when I was younger, I would insert myself into arguments. I would try to be involved in everything. But now, if I'm not directly implicated in something that's negative going on, I stay away from it. Yeah.
Any other distortion with it? Okay, any questions?
I don't actually see a list of the cognitive distortions in the handout. I might be missing.
Yeah, they should have them. It's a double sided.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
See that section. Yeah.
Yeah, double sided.
Mental filtering and catastrophizing are two that I have to deal with in my patients a lot of times.
Yeah. I can remember Ken comment on, he could always find the hundreds of lights on Christmas tree, but he always found the one that wasn't lit.
Yeah, good analogy.
You know, and it happens, definitely. We can't see the positive, all we can see is the negative. But the one below it is disqualifying the positive. If something good happens, that must be a fluke. That's not the norm in my life.
Yeah.
And people aren't able to see the positive. They're not able to see the positive.
Yep.
They can only see the negative that's going on in their life.
Accentuate the positive. Yeah.
It's hard work, but it's worth it. I don't know how many clients I've been trying to work on this stuff. And no matter what suggestion, yeah, but. Yeah, but. And I know as soon as I get yeah, but, I lost them.
What is this number 11 personalization? Yeah, it's on the other side, it's on the
Okay.
side.
Yeah, they blame themselves, others over which they have no control,
Yeah.
and it just creates a lot of stress. It's like a blame game. Because you're either gonna blame yourself or someone else for everything that happens.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's, you know, when you begin to blame other people, nothing changes.
That's right.
Mm.
That's right.
You gotta let go of blame sometimes.
Mhm.
And say, okay, this is what the situation is.
Yeah.
And begin to look at it in a different way.
Can I say something about that?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna just talk in terms of cognitive reframing. One of the things that was really helpful to me in my own life is when my husband and I got married, I came from a big family. I love big families. I love the chaos. I love the, and I said to Father Tom once, our church is kind of like a big family. It's a big, messy, loud, interactive family. And I love that. I love that kind of, and so I wanted to have 6 kids. Now, when I got married, my husband had been married before, and he had 3 kids, so he was like, 6 kids, all right, that's gonna be 9, that's gonna be a lot, but okay. All right, he's a very, very good husband. And when it was time to have kids, we found we couldn't. We found we couldn't have kids. And so, of course, I'm a doctor, so we exhausted the medical options. And every Mother's Day, I would cry. And that would make my husband miserable, and it would make me more miserable. And finally, part of cognitive reframing for me, this is just for me, part of cognitive reframing for me is very often, you know how you said change should to could, and how you said, I can't handle this to, how could I handle this? A lot of times I have to say to God, how can I bear this? How can I handle this? How can I move forward? And so God said, treat your stepkids like your own kids, with really great childcare arrangements. Okay, I can do that. And I did, and I have great stepkids, and I've got a good relationship with them, and I was able to let go of that Mother's Day morning that happened every year. And you know what? I found that God had a better plan for me, because when I was in my 50s, I found out I had a genetic disorder. And for those of you who are nerds out there, it's autosomal dominant. So 50% of my kids would have had it. God had a better plan. I would have never been able to do all the things I did professionally. I would have never been able to accomplish some of the goals that I had if I had kids of my own. And I have this lovely relationship with my stepkids that I don't think I would have had if I had my own kids. So God knew what he was doing, but I had to kind of trust him, and I had to also accept the reality of my situation, which was that I couldn't have kids. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Great example. And I'm sure we all have, you know, things in our lives where something happens and we just don't understand it. You know, and we think at that time, it devastates us sometimes. But if we're willing to trust and explore and do the work that we need to do, we can have testimonies like Dr. Mary. Yeah, I had a similar moment through my divorce. I was married 17 years and 2 kids. And one of the hardest things not more, but one of the hardest things at that point, I had dreams of what we were going to do as a family.
Yeah.
You know, retiring together,
Yeah.
watching the kids grow up together.
Yeah.
You know, so it was pretty devastating to me. At that point, I didn't have a job, I didn't have to work, I was always a stay-at-home mom. So my life changed so much. And it was a real struggle trying to figure out, okay, am I just going to give up? Or am I going to do something with my life? And I can remember the first time, the fear of going out and interviewing for a job. Wasn't like it is now, online, you had to go in person. Had to meet people. And, but I did. And I worked. And I had a great friend who really helped me get through a lot of that. Because I was really pretty depressed. And she said, why don't you go back to college? I said, go back to college? I've never been to college. What's that look like? I said, and that costs money. She said, you can get grants. She said, I'll take a course with you to get you going. Great friend. It's scary. I said, okay, I've got a choice at this point. I can be hopeless, go to work and be miserable and barely make enough money and not be happy, or I can do something good. And I did. It took me 8 years to get through undergrad school, but I got there. Because I did have to work. And I worked, and I realized I worked with adolescent girls. I loved them. I loved my job. Got too physical. I got to do something different. And once again, I had to make a choice. You're going to go out and get another job like this, or do you want to go further? So I went back to grad school. But I had to change the way I thought a lot about that. You know, because I was taken care of for 17 years. I didn't have to work. You know, I didn't have to mow the lawn. I didn't have to do any of those things. Or I could go out and find a guy and have someone else take care of me. Those are my choices. So it is. It's the way that reframing. This could be a good thing, and it was. Divorce is never a good thing. I mean, we frame that. but sometimes it happens. And sometimes you have choices to make. And you got to change the way you think about yourself and the world and the people around you sometimes. And that's part of reframing. Because I thought the world, I grew up believing the world was a bad place. That's what I was taught. And, when you ask fellows, as far as how you recognize, because I grew up with it all, that's how I recognize it. And like I said, I don't blame parents, they did the best they could do. But I also knew there was a lot of unhealthy thinking. Which needed to change in order for me to be the person God wants me to be. Any other distortions that jumping to conclusions, that's a huge thing for people too. Rather than letting the evidence bring them to a logical conclusion, they set their sights on a conclusion, and often negative. And then look for evidence to back it up, ignoring evidence to the contrary. So you're already decided. They use the example of a kid who decides that everyone in his new class will hate him. And he knows that they're only being nice to him in order to avoid punishment. Again, they don't like him. He's already jumped to that conclusion. Right? So even if the kid is nice to him, he's not gonna believe it. He's already made up his mind.
Mhm.
How many times do we do that? Any other questions?